just a quick intro here as we are getting ready to do the German turn. And they've got $104 to spend, but they won't after this turn. I don't think. We'll see. So here we have the Partisan tokens. Now I have both the little squares and the larger round ones, and they are supposed to be used in the Soviet Union. Now, I did not use them in this game. Sometimes they're treated as an optional rule. Sometimes they're, you've got to use them. And I absolutely, completely, and utterly forgot to use them. Now, I'm not going to put them in now because that would just be silly. I think it would just be a crazy thing to do. But essentially, the idea of partisans is that if the Axis leave a territory empty, one of these little bad boys will pop up. They can't attack, they can't move, they just sit there. But if at the end of the next Axis turn, German turn, if they have not been dealt with at the beginning of what would be the Soviet turn, they will turn into an infantry, they'll take back the territory, and they will take over that territory, take over the zone, and take the income. So, I'm not going to do it now because I didn't beforehand, and to do it now wouldn't give us a sense of any proper outcomes. So next time we play, we're going to play with these and see if it makes that big of a difference. I honestly don't think it would have. I think that the Germans would likely still have captured Moscow. We still got tons of stuff to spare here. But it may have taken a few more tanks out. The Germans may have actually had to sacrifice some aircraft. And obviously around here you'd have an infantry sitting in each of these zones. So we'll see if next game, if that causes a huge problem. But I know that we've played with them before, and they don't tend to cause that much of a difference. When you see this, it looks like they would. Oh, look at that. That's a whole bunch of partisans. That could be like 5 or 6 infantry. Yes, but when they happen 1 or 2 at a time, typically they just get crushed by the onslaught of the Soviets, who then tend to make a direct line into Moscow and not fart around with all this other stuff until they have subdued the USSR. So it is a fun diversion. I don't think it's game changing, but it's definitely a nice flavor to the game. And I do regret not playing with them this game. I just totally forgot. All right, on with round 9. And, if the snow's not bad enough, we're going to have a little bit of hail. So, why not? It's not very big, though. You can see it coming down here. It's not terribly bad. Good grief. What kind of weird weather are we getting today? It was sunny a little bit ago. Living in BC. Alright, this battle will likely determine if the war in the Pacific is over or still going on. So here we have the joint American Anzac fleet. They got some real heavy hitters there, but so do the Japanese. They've got lots of stuff here as well. Lots of air power and a Yamato that can take 3 hits. So we're going to see what happens here. I'm just going to roll it out and I'll give you the update. Well, that's the end result of the battle. Just a couple of damaged battleships. The Yamato has double damage. Now, the Japanese do have their air power left. They didn't lose any air power, but this is what they're down to. No destroyers or anything. So you've got a little pesky sub here that may actually just come and take a poke. You never know. You roll a 4, you can sink a battleship. That'd be pretty cool. And if he doesn't hit you back, you might sink the Yamato as well, which would be pretty sweet. Could also try to go up here and sink these 3 transports that are kind of unprotected except by scramble, but there's a good chance the planes will get you. Now, lest you feel poorly for the Japanese, they lost all this stuff here. All right, they did lose 4 fighters. It's not like they didn't lose any air power, but they still got their bombers and tacticals left. Here is what the Allies lost. And the Japanese still have Fleet number 2, ready to go. This is the one that came all the way around the Tierra del Fuego, Straits of Magellan, down around the Cape in Africa. And boy, they've had a fun journey. Another couple turns, they'll be back where they began. So that's it for the U.S. Pacific Fleet, and now they're being convoyed up there, and they're soon to be convoyed down here as well. There's really not a lot the people here can do about it. The Americans do have a single guy in the Marianas. You might actually just go hop into the Philippines just for fun, but there's not much else they're going to be able to do unless they start putting money into the Pacific again, but that'll just give Germany breathing room. We'll let you know. Oh, what a tangled web we weave. I tell ya. Just a crazy game. In Italy's turn, which I just did, they had a 14 IPP swing with Britain. They took 7 from Britain and took 7 of their own. So, well, what can I tell you? Let's start over here. So, we have some more landings in France that seem to be going fairly well. Looks like they're there to stay. Paris is empty. No, I'm kidding. You can see that we have a little tile up here. Got about 30 units on it or so. But there's still lots of allies here and many more to come. British built some destroyers, and you can see the entire German surface fleet is gone. Yes, they got hammered by the British, and the British lost all their boats, but they were able to hold on to their 2 Spitfires. And so that left things pretty good. We had the 6 American transports here. They are gone, but they took 2 bombers with them on 1 round of rolling, and it was the second round. So first round no hits, second round they only had 4 dice. They got 2 hits, 2 ones on those 4 dice, and shot down a couple of the medium bombers. So good for them. Over here, the Italians have had a great resurgence. They have just built a battleship, because why not? And they actually took home 35 bucks this round. Africa, still the domain of the British Empire and her allies, but the Italians have taken back their home islands of Sardinia and Sicily, and are now having their sights set further afield. Turkey has been taken by the British with all that neat stuff, which is going to die this round. But hey, it was fun while it lasted. Now you see there's no boats here because all the German planes came by and sank the coastal battleship and destroyer that were Turkey's, because they did not want them falling into the hands of the British to match up with this little fleet here. That could have spelled some more doom for the Italians. Doom round 2. So we didn't want that to happen. Over here, the Italians exercising their rights to take land that nobody's in. And boy, they're exercising. Actually, I forgot to put 1 Italian roundel on. We'll grab that right now. Throw that on in Iran, because that's a 5 IPP bonus for them. Yes, sirree, Bob. We know the Japanese are coming in. Calcutta has been pretty bulked up here. We got 4 more American aircraft have come in to help out. And Calcutta saved a bit of money this turn, but not enough. They're wanting to build a fortification. But unfortunately, their money is dwindling very rapidly. You can see the Japanese have taken Burma. And so they collected 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, $10 dues. Plus the 2 down here for $12 due total. And yeah, so they've got 15 for next round. They're probably going to build a fortification because the Japanese will be in Bangladesh and surrounding them actually. And they're just going to hunker in the bunker, hoping to be rescued by the Americans or the Anzac or somebody. So you can see, if you can get past my horrible shadow there, I'm just going to zoom in. Now you can't see the shadow. You can see that there's some destroyers in San Francisco hoping to get rid of some of these pesky subs that are convoying all over the place. Well, that's the end of the round. I guess that's round 9. Round 10 is coming up. Americans have been waiting for this. Maybe they'll be building their Ohio-class heavy battleships. Cost a little bit more, but they're a match for the Yamato. But the Germans are going to be putting pressure on. This is really where the game will be decided, in France. I think Calcutta is probably going to become very inconsequential shortly. They'll probably be too tough a nut to crack, but they won't be able to build very much at all. They'll be done to one man a turn plus the one that Britain builds. So the Japanese will continue to funnel in goods from their 3 factories on the mainland, and once they've built their merchant fleet back up, that will take a heavy toll on Calcutta as well. All right, there you have it, folks. Round 9 is done. Round 10 soon to follow. And at the end of round 10, there we have it, folks. And we are getting pretty close to the end of this game, I think. But we're going to let you take a look, and maybe you can help me decide if I should keep going or just leave things as is. We're going to start over here in the European theater. And we have a massive buildup of Allied forces here. A little bit of more stuff that can come from Britain, but they had to bulk up to build a bunch of destroyers this round because, well, you'll see why in a second. No American ships over here, just some transports, the 4 that returned back. And, of course, they can't make it all the way because there's no port. But there is now, yes, the Americans built a naval port here in Bordeaux, and the Shuck will be going on. We'll be having 6 transports going back and forth each time. Unfortunately, for one turn, there will be nothing coming from America. But then the next round, there will be 10 items coming from America. 4 with those transports, 6 with these transports. So that would be 20 items, not 10, but 10 boatloads. So that's a lot. That's a lot. Now, there isn't a ton of punch here, but there's enough. And the Germans are down to 4 aircraft on that side of the board. Only 6 on the entire board. Now, they do have a lot of stuff here. Lots of stuff. And the Allies could go ahead and land in Normandy or Reims or Holland, or maybe even take a try at West Germany at some point. But there are 15 things in there, or 16. So that might not be too smart. And look at all the fun subs that will sink anything that comes over here. Yes, there are now 9 German U-boats on the board again. Ready to pounce at a moment's notice. This is as close as the Allies can get before the Germans can pounce on them. But with this naval port, now the Allies can actually go right up to Denmark and Norway, which could cause problems. Down here, the British and their little, what do you want to call that, foray into Turkey is not going to end well. That's as much as they could do. We were thinking of possibly pushing up into there, but that's just going to get us even into more trouble. Might have gotten a couple extra bucks, but likely would have not been able to inflict the casualties that we would want to by having the fortification with the infantry. So we decided to stay put. The Italians are back, baby. They're back in Africa, back in brown. Not quite AC/DC, but there you go. They are there and likely to stay because they're also over here in the Middle East, and Cairo is now absolutely under siege. The Germans will likely dispatch that group of Brits in Turkey, and the rest of these tanks will be able to make their way down this way. Now, it's not a foregone conclusion. They don't have a lot of numbers there. The British definitely outnumber them. But for how long? We do not know. And over here in Calcutta, yes, things are not going good for the Indian contingent. They are crushed back. They are down to $5 on the strength of 3 from Calcutta and 2 from a convoy zone that isn't being convoyed. One of their 4 convoy zones that isn't being convoyed. These 3 are what the Italians are doing out there. But this one over here is not. So they do get the $2 from that. Over here we can see that the Anzac came and took Celebes. And they used to have 2 subs. Only got 1 now. But the Japanese lost 3 transports that came down and took Borneo. Now, I knew as the Japanese I couldn't protect them all, but I figured this is an $8 swing for the remainder of the game because there's no way Anzac's going to come out here and try to take that with all of this Japanese presence here. So that's $8 per turn for the rest of the game, depending on how long the game goes. The lone American transport that helped liberate the Philippines was sunk on a flyby from yours truly. The Americans are still nestled in Okinawa, but got no boats to hop off the island with. The Japanese used their insane economy to do another insta-fleet, and they are ready to go. 3 more transports, 2 destroyers, 2 Yamatos, and a fully loaded carrier. And they can actually land in the Pacific Northwest right up here this turn. Which, of course, means very little. It's only worth 2, but then the Americans will not be able to put as much money into their production on the East Coast to go after the Germans. So, I think I'll probably play one more round of this game and see what we see. Is it worth going on? If Calcutta falls, I think I'll call it. I don't think it's going to fall. The Germans have to hit it first, and they really don't have that much stuff. They're probably going to lose everything in the first round. And Calcutta will hold on to the anti-aircraft gun because they need it against the Japanese, of course. Now, the Japanese obviously are no pushovers. They're going to be able to bring in quite a bit of stuff. In fact, everything from Siam. And it looks like I forgot to put Siamese infantry down, so I'll just have to remember to do that last round. They're purple. That's how I keep track of them. And I'll have to put one down there, and they can bring those 4 over, plus most of this stuff here can reach on the strength of all the mechs that are there. And lots of air power. Lots and lots and lots and lots of air power. And a lot of it is pretty hefty stuff. So it will be interesting to see. That first round is very telling. I know that in Triple Crown's game, Calcutta fell, and he said rather easily, but if you look in China on his game, the Chinese are pushing the Japanese off the continent. So that's the trade-off I make, is I try to take care of China first. Don't worry about that. It's all gone, and now I can just focus fire down here with no chance of a revival. None whatsoever. As long as the Japanese can keep the Americans away, there's no chance for a revival. The last thing I want to mention is the convoying. The Japanese are still convoying the Americans to the tune of $15, which isn't very friendly, but they're doing it. They did have 20, but the Americans were able to sink this with the help of the medium bomber. But when they came up to sink that one, it took about 8 rounds, and finally the Japanese sub was able to get a hit. But they're being convoyed for 10 in the Pacific, 5 here, but the American sub has come over to put stop to that nonsense. And that Japanese sub might not be long for this world unless it does as well as its brother in the Pacific did. All right, so that's it for round 10. We're going to play one more round, and we'll know whether or not to carry on. Here we go. Okay, well, that went really, really, really well for the Axis. The Germans attacked first, lost everything, but it actually took 2 waves, and they were able to take out, I think, 11 infantry. Yeah, so this is all that they had left, the FEC, and even with the help from the American air power, and this thing missed both shots, and none of the infantry got hits. Really, really bad. They got diced hard, but if you look at everything that the Japanese were bringing in, it was not going to end well. I just didn't think it was going to end on round 1. Like round 1, we didn't even get through everything. I started at the top, worked my way down. I got into the 3s, and I didn't even roll any of my 2s. This is all the hits that they got. They got 9 hits total. And it could have been infantry. I was just using infantry in the stack with the artillery. So we're going to call it, but not just on the strength of that, but also on this. Yes, the Germans went out of Paris and kicked some butt. Now, I've never believed that a single call decides a football game, or that a single penalty decides a hockey game, or anything like that. And I'll never say a single roll defines a game like this. We're in the 11th round of this insanity. And there's absolutely nothing for it when The Germans have their stack of about 42 units, and the Allies have 51. And on the first round, they both get 21 hits. Okay, they both get 21 hits. And I'm thinking, okay, the Allies are going to survive this. Should not have said that, because on the next round, the Germans got 14 hits, and the Allies with 31 dice, 4. That's it, 4 hits. And it was all over but the crying at that point. Now, I mean, the Allies did, kill a lot of stuff. This is all the German stuff that got killed. But they still have those 9 units left over, including some heavy tanks. And they also have the aircraft that didn't die. And this is the stuff that got moved into or built in Paris at the end of the round. Actually, this all got moved in. The build is just those 3 guys there. And I also built a fortification. I didn't think I was going to win that. I was just going out to hammer down the Allies a little bit, but that's it. So we're going to call it. There is no follow-up from the Allies on this side. The most they could bring over is about 10 units, and the Germans are pumping out 23 around over here. So that's going to be it, folks. Now, we're going to likely be doing another one of these in the future, but what we're going to do is hammer out some of the more, the trickier parts of the rules, because as we've added units and we've added NOs, we've noticed that there's a couple of things that just tend to be automatic. Like, why wouldn't you do that then if you're going to get that bonus and then you deny the other person his bonus? So, as you know, I am not a fan of games that play you. You should be playing the games. You should be making the decisions. You should be deciding, is the juice worth the squeeze, right? Are you going to put all that effort in to get what you want? If you remember the beginning of this game, there were 2 things that Triple Crown did that were working out really well for him at the beginning, and that was running the Italians out of Africa. So on round 2, he kicked me out on round 3, I think. I was gone. And so then every dollar I had for the Italians went into the Soviet Union, and they were instrumental in actually blocking some stuff here and there. Had I been fighting tooth and nail over Africa, Germany would have been on her own going through. So there is something to be said for, giving a little bit of hope to certain players so that they will, maybe I can fight over that. Because if there's no reason to fight over it, then you put all of your effort elsewhere. The other thing that I did not do well this game, although it didn't really come back to hurt me too much, was the use of my Japanese sneak attack. As you know, my fleet went all over on a grand around the world cruise and did not do anything. I shouldn't say they didn't do anything. We sank a few transports in the Atlantic and we invaded South Africa, which we then promptly lost. But they really didn't do an awful lot. They were a bit of a menace to the Allies building units over here because they could just sink them. So I suspect that could be helpful. But why did I go east when I should have just gone west? So the next game I play, if I'm the Axis, I think the Japanese are going to be much more aggressive and go after these money islands as soon as they can. Get Singapore, get Hong Kong, get the money islands, and do everything they can to get as much money as they can before they use their sneak attack on the Americans, which is kind of the hope. That's the design of it, really, is to go after the Americans. But if the Americans are not out of reach, then hey, go for Calcutta. So I hope you've enjoyed this, folks. Oh, one last thing I'm going to tell you. You may have noticed some shiny pink dice up here. Aren't those nice? And just behind, you might see a little V1 rocket launcher. I'll show you this one over here. I put this one out here. So this is something that once the Allies have landed in Western Europe, not including Norway, but if they've landed in France or Holland or something, you get to use up to 3 of these. Now you got to pay for them, but they're only $1 a pop, and then you roll the dice. And depending on what you roll, a certain thing happens. So you roll, what did I get? Ooh, that is a fine roll. The 3 doesn't count. The 1 means I get to choose a target unit from up to 4 spaces away. The 2 means that the defender gets to choose an allied unit from up to 4 spaces away. I rolled this and like a, I don't know, something else, like a 6 and a 4 or something, this last round. So I was able to take out 1 American tank out of Bordeaux. Did not decide the game, but probably could have saved me 2 or 3 of my tanks, right? So those are fun, those little V1 rockets. I love the little sculpts. They look really cool. Might be hard to see the definition there. I don't know. Let's see here. Yeah, there you go. Woohoo! Look at that. So, recommend picking those up. Those are some great sculpts you can get at HBG. All right. Thanks so much for watching, folks. And remember, hug your loved ones. Thank your friends for playing. And I really, really hope that more so than the Allies, those dice will be with you.